Nazrin bin Norizan for the dua recitation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I will start with recitation of Kitab Al-Fatihah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا حامدين حمدا شاكرين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك الكريم وعظيم سلطانك والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم انشرنا شعور المحبة بيننا واربط قلوبنا بالكرامة وأحسن أخلاقنا بالنور والهداية وثبت قلوبنا بكل الرعاية اللهم ارزقنا متابعة النبيين واجعلنا من الساجدين لوجهك الكريم اللهم بالعافية والسلامة وحفظنا بالتقوى والاستقامة وأعذنا من مجيبة ندامة واغفر لنا وارحمنا ولوالدينا ولمن أحينا وأحسن إلينا ولمن كان حقا علينا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Ya Allah, in conjunction with the organizing of Malaysia Madani International Symposium 2024, Islam and Moderation, we ask for your blessing on the event with perfection and goodness. Please make this symposium benefits to everyone, a good provision and deeds that will be accepted. O Allah, give our soul nafs as God-fearing righteousness and purify it, for you are the best to purify it. You are the best protector and the perfect guardian. Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da iz hadaytana wa hab lana min ladunka rahmah innaka antal wahhab. Rabbana zalamna anfusana wa illam taghfir lana wa tarhamna lanakunanna minal khasirin. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin, Amin, Ya Rabbal Alameen. May Allah bless us. Thank you to Mr. Bakar for the recitation of dua. It is my great pleasure to now invite the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Research and Innovation of USIM, Professor Dato Dr. Muhammad Taufik Muhammad Noor, to the stage to give an opening speech. Please welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Chairperson. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli amma ba'du. Yang bahagia Profesor Datuk TS Technologies Dr. Sharifuddin Mat Syarani, the Vice-Chancellor of USIM, Deputy Vice-Chancellor USIM, the Board of Directors USIM, the USIM Management Committee USIM, invited speakers. I could see here Professor Emeritus Dato Dr. Osman Bakar, the holder of Al-Ghazali Chair, ISTEC, UIM, Professor John L. Esposito, who is online from Georgetown University, USA, Professor Dr. H. Abdul Muti from Secretary General Muhammadiyah Indonesia, Associate Professor Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf from Shenandoah University, USA, and Professor Dato Dr. Zulkifli from USIM, who will be the moderator. Deans of the faculty in USIM, the university representative. I could see here also Professor Dr. Shukri Lamputi from Andaman University, Prof. Khairuddin from NUS. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam Malaysia Madani, salam USIM Kampus Barakah. Alhamdulillah, it gives me a great pleasure to speak to you this morning. It is with immense pleasure and gratitude that I welcome you at the opening of the Malaysia Madani International Symposium 2024 entitled Islam and Moderation. We gather here today from diverse corners of the world, united by a common purpose to explore, understand, and celebrate the principles of moderation inherent in Islam and their vital role in fostering global peace, harmony, and mutual respect. The inaugural Malaysia Madani International Symposium 2024 offers interesting and informative conversations on Islam and moderation presented by renowned speakers from all over the world. We are privileged to have the presence of esteemed speakers such as Professor Emeritus Dato Dr. Osman Bakar, who holds the Al-Ghazali Chair at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, ISTEC, IIUM, Malaysia, Sheikh Abdul Qudus, the distinguished Mufti of Australia, Professor John L. Esposito, a renowned professor from Georgetown University, USA, and Professor Dr. Jasir Auda, the president of Maqasid Institute, Canada, among others. Their insights will undoubtedly enrich our understanding and inspire us to think critically and compassionately about the role of moderations in our lives and community. This symposium hopefully provides an opportunity to reflect on the accomplishment, challenges, and lessons acquired over the ages by the Muslim world, while also laying the groundwork of creating a future marked by Madani, which means sustainability, prosperity, innovation, respect, trust, care, and compassion. These principles are not only central to the teachings of Islam, but are also essential in our collective efforts to foster peaceful and inclusive societies. Ladies and gentlemen, moderation is a fundamental Islamic virtue that emphasizes balance, temperance, and avoiding extremes in thinking and conduct. Promoting Islam and moderation entails cultivating a culture of critical thinking, dialogue, and mutual respect within Muslim communities, as well as lobbying for policies and projects that represent moderate ideals in governance, higher education, and social welfare. Muslim moderates with a defined framework of Islam and moderation play an important role as catalysts for positive change and growth within Muslim majority societies and the worldwide Muslim communities in relation to other faiths. They reflect the values of moderation, balance, and tolerance, acting as bridges between various religious, cultural, and ideological viewpoints. The immediate aftermath of the 9/11 attacks saw a sharp rise in Islamophobia. Many non-Muslims developed a suspicious and fearful attitude towards Muslim and the Islamic world because of this tragedy and several others that occurred over the years. The media coverage and political rhetoric frequently confused Islam with terrorism, which contributed to this situation. There was an increase in hate crimes and discrimination against Muslims. This included verbal abuse, physical assault, vandalism of mosques, and workplace discrimination. Despite efforts to promote understandings, many stereotypes and misunderstandings about Islam and Muslim persist. Thus, in today's world, where polarization and misunderstandings often prevail, this symposium serves as a vital platform for constructive dialogue and intellectual exchange. Our discussion will illuminate with rich traditions of moderation that have always been a cornerstone of Islamic thoughts and practice. As we engage in our discussions over the next few days, I encourage each of you to participate with open hearts and minds. Let us use this opportunity to build bridges and understanding, challenge misconceptions, and reaffirm our commitment to the values of Madani. May our symposium be fruitful and enriching experience for all, inshallah. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato, for the insightful remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to begin our highly anticipated panel discussion with the theme Shaping the Moderate Muslims' Minds for the Contemporary World. This theme is a concept that addresses the evolving role of moderate Muslims in a rapidly changing global landscape. It emphasizes the importance of fostering a balanced understanding of Islamic principles in conjunction with modern values such as human rights, democracy, and diversity. This approach encourages moderate Muslims to actively engage in contemporary social, political, and cultural dialogues, promoting tolerance and peaceful coexistence. By integrating traditional religious teachings with modern thought, moderate Muslims can contribute to a more harmonious and progressive global society. This concept also seeks to counteract extremist ideologies by advocating for education, critical thinking, and interfaith collaboration. This session will define the truly moderate Muslims' minds who's responsible to lead Muslim world direction forward. Joining us today, please welcome our moderator for this session, Professor Dato Dr. Zulkifli Abdul, Faculty of Leadership and Management, USIM, and the respected keynote speakers to the stage.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. And very good morning to everyone. Honorable guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first session of Malaysia Madani International Symposium 2024, Islam and Moderation. It is my pleasure to be the moderator for this session. As mentioned by MC, the topic is on shaping the moderation Muslim mind for the contemporary world. First of all, I would like to thank all of the audience for attending our first session this morning. Thanks for squeezing your time to join us in this early morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 presenters in this session, and let's our technical team, if we can see Professor John Esposito from Washington, I think, if we can connect to him. Okay, Prof. Thank you joining us from Washington. How are you, Prof. John?
Doing fine. Delighted to be here.
I think you need to unmute.
I am unmuted.
We cannot hear you, Prof. How are you?
I am fine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce our first speaker for this session. Professor Emeritus Dato Osman Bakar, a doctorate in Islamic philosophy from Temple University, USA. He is currently chair of Epistemology and Civilizational Studies and Renewal at the ISTEC, International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization. Briefly, Dr. Osman is the author and editor of over 40 books and more than 300 articles on various aspects of Islamic thought and civilization. He is also has been named among the most 500 most influential Muslim in the world since 2009. So, a very well-known scholars, Alhamdulillah, and Prof. Dato Osman will share with us his thought, and without further ado, Prof, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wa mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Professor Zulkifli as the moderator, Professor Dato Sharifuddin, Professor Mohd Taufik, fellow panelists, Professor Imtiyaz, long-time friend, Professor Abdul, Secretary General of the Muhammadiyah, also an old friend. And over there in Washington, University Professor John Esposito. Hello, John.
How are you?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Thank you, John. I really miss you. I miss, it's nice to see you, even though only online today. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to the co-organizers, Ministry of Higher Education, USIM, Abin, for inviting me to be the first speaker today. I know I've given only 20 minutes, not much, to speak on a big topic. Yeah, you give only me 20 minutes, and the moderator wants to cut some more, it's not fair, but I will try. So anyway, I prepared a few slides, because now slides has become a fardu ain. Okay, yes, who need? The first slide. I was told that somebody just give instruction that day. Okay, that's it. Yes, I can see from here. Thank you. All right. I give my topic reshaping the moderate Muslim mind for the contemporary world. In the program, it's shaping, but I put it reshaping. Why? Number one, the so-called moderate Muslim mind, this is not a dead thing. It is not a non-living entity. It is a living entity. It's alive, up and down, well and no, not well. It is a living thing. So, why reshaping? Because the moderate Muslim mind has its beginning. It is statically in the Quran, based on the concept ummatan wasatan. So, and of course, the moderate Muslim mind has 14 centuries of history. As I said, there's up and down. And the moderate Muslim mind now is struggling because under assault from different sides, from the groups, from among the Muslims, as well as among the non-Muslims. Basically, these two groups are interested in the concept, in the idea of the moderate mind. So that's how I said reshaping. I want to talk now about this reshaping. And okay, next slide, please. So for that, I have this, basically I want to concentrate here on, I want to arguing for wasatiyah as the foundation of global citizenship and a new world moral order. That's how I want to orientate your mind, the Muslim mind, to that. And I just want to say that we Muslims, we are Muslims, it's better for us to use the word wasatiyah rather than moderate. Why? The English word moderate is too vague in meaning, is too contested, it is too contested, and furthermore, this word is being used by Muslims as well as non-Muslims. America, for example, under several administrations, have been very interested in this idea of the moderate Muslim, moderate according to them. We want moderate Muslims, mean moderate according to them. Well, I don't touch, actually this is the topic that Professor John Esposito will deal with. So anyway, basically, the word that we want to start on is wasatiyah. Okay, next slide, please. Now, the next slide, I want to talk about the perennial meaning of wasatiyah. There is a meaning of wasatiyah, no matter in which century we live in, that is the meaning to which we should hold. First of all, of course, somehow, precisely because it is in the Arabic language, and the Arabic word is based on the root system, there's always the etymological meaning which keeps on reminding us what wasatiyah means. Yeah? So here, for example, I said, let's go back. Yeah? If you use the word wasatiyah as moderation, then what is the root word? The root word of this wasata, which means if you refer to the Arabic dictionaries, go to the root word, they understand wasatiyah comes from the word wasat, which means to be in the middle, to be at the center, implying prominence and being the best. That is the etymological meaning. Hence, we have the idea of moderation in the sense of middleness, tawassut, that middleness. What about conceptual meaning? Of course, these conceptual meanings has developed over the centuries, but when I refer to the literature, then basically, all right, what I see is that there is clearly what we are trying to do now in going to the conceptual meanings, that we want to rediscover the epistemology of wasatiyah and the role of the Quran in transforming the semantic field of wasatiyah. First, some points I want to highlight here. Now, the extent of the semantic transformation is impressive in the sense that it cuts across all the sciences or academic disciplines. So for Muslims to say, we have talked too much already about the meaning of wasatiyah, let's go to action. No, I don't agree. Because to rediscover the meaning of wasatiyah, that is an ongoing thing. We will see why I mean that. Now, the idea of middleness, tawassut, is applied to intangible things. Human character, human community, that's the ummah, human social order, intellectual or ideological system, all that included, that is covered by that term, middleness. And then the idea of equilibrium, i'tidal, balance and harmony, tawazun, proportion and symmetry, taswiyah, all that covered. The idea of justice, adl, that is covered. All right? Now, I'm sorry, there's something wrong with my slides here, no? Basically, I mean here that one is that the idea of justice. This is some of the meaning, and all right. Then the question of the I was referring to the ayat of the Quran, all right. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. That is that's the key thing. Yeah? I'm sorry, I have to refer to back to this slide because it's not in my paper, my slide. Now, the idea of health and well-being, that's also included. The idea of the best. So when we look at all this meaning, so the idea of the center, equilibrium, balance, and harmony, proportion, and symmetry, and justice, these are the main ingredients in any concept of order, whether it is natural order or it is the human order. Thank you. Next one, please. All right. Now the Quranic application of this concept of wasatiyah, I've already recited the verse. Now, basically, for those who don't understand, let me translate that. Thus, we have made you a justly balanced, translate wasatan there, justly balanced, but also means the middle. Literally, it means the middle community. That we might be witnesses of the whole humanity, and the messenger a witness over yourselves. Yeah, so I think in other words here, the idea of wasatiyah is identified with the idea of witness. Witness, that is important thing. We are all witnesses. It's a very, very challenging thing to play the role of the middle mind, the middle community. Okay, next one. So basically, we have to relieve the community of the middle path, the Ummatan Wasatan. Now, the membership. What is the membership qualification of this community? Basically, it is acceptance of unity of God, La ilaha illallah, and apostleship of Muhammad Rasulullah. No, it's not to say it, but to be witness. To be a witness 24 hours a day of the first pillar of Islam, right? Some people think that the first pillar of Islam is very easy. Actually, it is the most difficult pillar of the five, because we have to be a witness of the unity of Allah and the apostleship of Muhammad all the time. Now, what are the rights of the members? The rights of the members, the universal rights of man, as embodied in the higher purpose of divine law. But we always talk about rights of man in the light of the rights of Allah. And the duties of the members to be witnesses, shuhada, individual and collective witnessing of truth and justice, modeled on Prophet Muhammad's witnessing, and the substance of that is the middleness. Okay, next one, please. All right. Articulating features of the 21st century middle community. Now we are in the 21st century. That is what we are interested in. To me, basically, the challenge before us today is how to bring about this civilizational middleness, or Madani middleness. I emphasize 4 points. Because there is religious middleness. By the way, it means iktisad. Al-Ghazali in his book, iktisad fil itiqad. The word iktisad there, referring to middleness with reference to beliefs. And that is part of what I call religious middleness. Political middleness, that is the rights of man and rights of God in balance. Unlike the West today, we talk only about the rights of the individual. Islam talks about as well the rights of God, as well as the rights of the human collectivity. Rights not only for individuals, but also for groups. It's also for groups. Such as, for example, for the Ahlul Kitab. Ahlul Kitab is a group, and they have their rights, which Islam must respect. And then economic middleness. Again, we had the word iktisad. The name of economic itself is iktisad, meaning the science of middleness in terms of wealth acquisition and spending. And then even scientific and technological middleness. Our problem today is that because technology no longer talks about middleness. Okay. And then identifying the wasati of mind with the Quranic framework. All right. Now I am inviting. All right. We have the resources, religious resources, spiritual resources. We have natural resources. Now, how should we play today in terms of to deal with the contemporary world? Because the contemporary world is full of challenges. So I think I'm inviting here, especially the younger generation, let us have a mindset in which you want to orient the Muslim mind today in the face of the contemporary challenges. To me, I just choose a few because the topic is vast. First of all, I think what we need to think about nowadays, Islam in the forefront in saying that the earth is man's only planetary home. Now, we want to talk about the moderate Muslim mind, talking about that level of concern and consciousness. The earth is humankind's only planetary home, no other planet. Yeah? Okay, and I quote here, وَكُلْ نَحْبِتُ بَعْدُكُمْ لِبَعْدٍ عَدُونَ وَلَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُسْتَقَرٌ وَمَتَاعٌ إِلَى حِينٍ. All right? And we say, get you down, all you people, with enmity between yourselves. On earth will be your dwelling place and your means of livelihood for time. Which means that planet Earth is our only real planet. People may try to live in other planets, by all means they go. But as far as we are concerned, the Earth is our only home. Okay, and then a few more slides here. The global community, can you go this one? Yeah. The global community is identified with the Adamic species, or the children of Adam inhabiting the planet Earth. The Quran makes this very clear. And the next one is humankind is characterized by ethnic and religious diversity. This is also the issue of our time. Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila ta'arafu. O humankind, we created you from a single pair and a male and female and made you into nations and tribes that you may know each other. The West now even quoted this Quranic verse nowadays, but this is very, very important for us. And humankind constitutes one single community. The way things are going on, developing in the world today, pointing to one thing: we are getting closer and closer as members of one single community. It's as if Allah wants to show all of us why these things happening now. Because God wants to bring back all the branches of humanity into one. And then they will look to Islam as the religion of this single family. Now, so it looks like so there's no synchronization between what appears on the slides. Okay, next slide. All right. Next one, please. Yes. Okay. In identifying the diversity of mind with the Quranic framework for global community and citizenship, I want to emphasize this, that a common planetary interest, responsibility, and destiny point to the need of a single world governance that is collective and inclusive in nature. Are we thinking, are we reflecting on what is going on in the United Nations now? Does the nations really can unite humanity, can fight for justice? I mean, we have been discussing this, but the point is, if we look at Islam, at the Quran, then we have no choice. So our mind, what we call this, our moderate mind, has to deal with these issues. The Wasatiyah community at all levels fulfills three fundamental criteria: enjoining the doing of what is right, forbidding the doing of what is wrong, and believing in God. Right. Global citizenship is defined in terms of membership of the Wasatiyah community, the need for a good governance of the Wasatiyah community. In the Quran addresses the global community on numerous issues 27 times, at least those verses which address Ya ayyuhan nas. If we look at all the verses, Ya ayyuhan nas, and look at the issues that the Quran talks in those verses, these are the global issues that Allah wants us Muslims to deal with. So those 27 times, the verses demonstrate the particular concern with the world moral order that human needs. All right, let me conclude now regarding the Wasatiyah-based moral order, the future. I have two concluding remarks. First, in the light of the Quranic teaching that the Muhammadan Ummah should play an exemplary Wasatiyah role, that is, as witnesses, shuhada, in global affairs, it is imperative that they empower themselves with the necessary resources, intellectual, spiritual, moral, and material for that particular role. The best that the Ummah can do to help secure a better future for themselves and the rest of humanity is to pursue a wasatiyah-based global agenda of advancing mutual understanding, ta'aruf, cooperation for the common good, ta'awun, and healthy competition, tasabu, healthy competition in the global community. And number two, a wasatiyah-based global agenda would mean the desirability and even necessity of a coalition of moderate forces. You know, now Muslims are moderate, but there are other moderate forces in the world, yeah? Coming from other religious traditions. So we need a coalition. This is nothing to do with the coalition of the willing of George Bush. Right? This is a coalition, a real coalition of the moderate forces in the global community. Such an initiative would not pose great difficulty, since middleness is a universal idea that is found in all religious traditions. Now comes Malaysia. Malaysia is a multi-religious country. All the big religions of the world are here. Not only us talking about middleness, moderate. The Christians with the idea of the golden mean, the Confucianists with the idea of Chunyun, the Buddhists with the idea of Madhya Patipada, the Hindus, the idea, the doctrine of yoga karma. Of course, the different understandings of wasatiyah, but all different versions of that. And that is important to note, all right? So it's not difficulty. Since middleness is a universal idea that's found in all religious tradition, but by virtue of having the most modern, I repeat, by virtue of having the most modern and the most universal idea of middleness, Islam is in a strategic civilizational position to play a leading role in the global initiative, right? Which means such thing as true intercultural dialogue on the meaning of middleness, of moderation. You can imagine if all the people in Malaysia under one banner, accept this idea of middleness, and we deal with all forms of extremism and terrorism and so on, not just among Muslims, but also include the other branches of humanity. But the key question now is, how many Muslim minds are now already impregnated with the wasatiyah idealism? That's my question. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Emeritus Dato Osman Bakar. If I can conclude briefly, so the basic thinking on shaping the moderate Muslim mind is laid Bakar, verse 143. Ummatan wasata. That is can be translated as a justly balanced nation. So that is the core teaching of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let's move on to the second presenter. So briefly, if I can introduce our second presenter, Professor John Esposito, a very well-known scholar in religion and international affairs, currently a professor at Georgetown University. The technical team, can you connect with Professor John? I just read a few information on him. He has received honorary doctorate from several universities around the world, and he has published more than 50 books. He is also a founding director of Al-Walid Center for Muslim Christian Understanding in the Walsh School of Foreign Service. Professor John, I read many of your books, and as mentioned by Professor Dato Osman, wasatiyah and moderation is the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad. So, Prof, you can elaborate further, and the floor is yours. Please.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. I'm delighted to be with you today. Having visited and spoken in all different parts of Malaysia so many times in the past, I've looked forward to our program. My only regret is that a long-standing previous commitment prevents me from being with you. Georgetown and the Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, which I created in 1993 as its founding director, has had a long connection with Malaysia. We have the Malaysia Chair for the Study of Islam in Southeast Asia, and two of your most distinctive scholars, Kamal Hassan and Osman Bakar, held that position, as did also at another time Anwar Ibrahim. In addition, two other scholars that you have speaking also have been with the center in that chair. Professors Imtiyaz Yusuf and Khairuddin Al-Junaid were recent holders. Tonight I will address shaping the moderate Muslim mind for the contemporary world by discussing three major Southeast Asians whom I have known and studied and whose ideas and policy recommendations are very relevant as we look to today and to the future. For several decades, a vibrant and influential group of Muslim intellectuals and religious leaders from North Africa to Southeast Asia, from Europe to America, have addressed the role of Islam in contemporary society. How does religion and Islamic law contribute to the modern nation state? Where do Islamic values apply to key issues today, like democracy, secularism, gender equality, human rights, heart transplants, free market economies, modern banking? What is the role of religious scholars and leaders, the ulama? Are they the only authoritative voices who speak for Islam? In the 21st century, religious, political, and social reform include issues of authoritarianism, democratization, pluralism, religious and political pluralism, and human rights, and are important agendas and goals. In Southeast Asia, in Malaysia and Indonesia, for example, one could hear talk of convivencia, a reference whose roots were in Andalusia, where Jews, Christians, and Muslims lived during Muslim rule, and more recently, to a call for modern political, religious, and societal reformasi. The Reformation movements in 1998 advocated by Anwar Ibrahim in Malaysia, as well as the Reformasi movement which dethroned Suharto in Indonesia. At the same time, in recent years, we've seen an increase in political and religious extremism and militant organizations in the Muslim world and globally. The result has undermined or eroded religious and political diversity, pluralism, and human rights. It has also distorted the religion of Islam and what the vast majority of Muslims believe and practice. Contemporary Islam and many Muslim countries and societies are in transition, as indeed are countries in the West and globally. If you take a look more recently at what's happening in the United States, or if you look at Europe, and one can go from there to China, all the way over to India, etc. They are diverse, complex, traditionalist, and reformist movements that exist. The struggle for Islamic reform has taken, though, two broad directions: a return to and reappropriation of an often romanticized and in some cases reimagined past on the one hand, or a return to the past for inspiration and guidance in order to reinterpret and reform Islam and produce more moderate Muslims and societies in the 21st century. Today, Muslim understanding and interpretations of Islam, attitudes towards change and modernization, reveal a broad religious diversity of perspectives. You have secularist-oriented Muslims who emphasize the future development of Muslim societies and that it is contingent upon a separation of religion and state and politics. You have conservatives and traditionalists who reaffirm the continued relevance of Islamic faith and traditions amidst the predominantly Western-oriented change whose secularism and material excesses they reject. You have modernist reformers, diverse modernist reformers who advocate an Islamic reformation, or reformasi, a fresh interpretation or reconstruction of religious thought and the transformation of Muslim societies based upon a selective synthesis of aspects of Islamic and Western, as well as other cultures. They emphasize and advocate the development of moderate Muslims for whom Islam and Islamic values have a role in state and society, social and political reform. Voices of change are not simply restricted to the ulama, the traditional standard bearers of Islam. Many reformers are modern educated and Islamically oriented Muslims who address issues of democratization, religious and political pluralism, human rights, gender equality, and reject violence and religious extremism. A series of questions and challenges follow. 1. What does Islam have to do with the fact that a significant number of Muslim countries are authoritarian, limit free speech, and have weak civil societies? 2. Is Islam incompatible with modern democracy, pluralism, and human rights? Many reformers reinterpret and enhance traditional Islamic beliefs and concepts, ijtihad, shura, ijma', maslaha, to support modern notions of popular participation, pluralism, and human rights. Widespread participation in electoral politics and major polling show an on-the-ground reality, a desire for greater political participation, the rule of law, and human rights. But the status of religious minorities, Muslims and non-Muslims, remains a contested reality in some countries regarding equal citizenship, rights, and especially religious freedom. Muslims today face critical challenges and choices. Governments that rely upon authoritarian rule, security forces, and repression will have to open up their political systems, build and strengthen civil society, discriminate between free speech and mainstream opposition, and a violent extremism that must be crushed or contained. Societies that limit freedom of thought and expression produce a sense of alienation and powerlessness that can result in radicalization and extremism. The jihad or struggle of moderate Muslims for the next 100 years will be religious, intellectual, spiritual, and moral. It requires a more rapid and widespread program of Islamic renewal that not only builds on past reformers, but also follows the lead of enlightened religious, political leaders and parties, intellectuals and the broader society today, who more forcefully and more effectively engage in wide-ranging processes of reinterpretation, ijtihad, and reform, islah. I will now discuss briefly 3 significant Muslim examples who have played important roles and whose thought and attitudes and suggested policies are especially relevant today as we look to the future. First, Anwar Ibrahim. Anwar has had a long established and celebrated record as a remarkably popular and effective youth leader, a founder of a reformist social movement, a senior Malaysian government official, an Islamic reformer and public intellectual, and today Prime Minister. His contributions, accomplishments, and integrity have been acknowledged in the international community and certainly in the broader Muslim world. Anwar has advocated, like many Muslim reformers in Malaysia and Indonesia, a moderate middle way rooted in social and economic justice, pluralism, and in a broader understanding of religious tolerance, rooted in universal principles expressed in Islam. While its core values have remained the same, they've been defined and redefined throughout his life's journey in response to changing local and global contexts. Thus, for example, early, more explicitly ethnic Malay rights and identity and Islamic concerns shifted to a more broadly inclusive conceptualization of pluralism and strongly opposite ethnic nationalism and racism as being contrary to Islam. Anwar's understanding of the nature of pluralism in multi-religious societies in the world as a whole emphasizes the importance of intercivilizational dialogue as the only possible alternative to Huntington's and others' belief in a clash of civilization. Anwar Ibrahim's civilizational approach led to a new paradigm based on Asian values, the subject of his book, The Asian Renaissance. It was rooted in the recognition of the failure of Western development paradigms as they are rooted and applied in Asia to address issues of good governance, social justice, compassion for the weak and the unfortunate, eradicating poverty and religious diversity. As the basis of a healthy pluralism and a healthy and dynamic society in multi-ethnic and in a multi-ethnic and multi-religious world. Next, I will look at Indonesia's Abdul Rahman Wahid, or Gus Dur, the former leader of the Nahdlatul Ulama and later Democratic Indonesia's first president. He bridged the worlds of traditional Islam and modern thought. Although a former longtime leader of the more traditionalist Nahdlatul Ulama, the biggest 35 million member Islamic organization, it may be bigger than that actually today, in the world's largest Muslim country, Abdul Rahman Wahid appeared to be something of an anomaly among religious reformers as he reflected his traditionalist roots, leadership and charisma, but also an Islamic modernist perspective. Wahid himself has long espoused a very modern and cosmopolitan Islam, as he talks about it, a cosmopolitan interpretation of Islam. Wahid espoused a cosmopolitan Islam, a response to the demands of modern life and reflecting, in his words, Indonesian Islam's diverse religious and ethnic history and communities. So cosmopolitan Islam, he maintained, is an inclusive, religious, democratic, and pluralistic force. Wahid believed that contemporary Muslims were at critical crossroad. He rejected both the legal formalism of many conservative Muslims and fundamentalism as aberrations and major obstacles to Islamic reform and to Islam's response to global change. He saw two choices or paths confronting Muslims: to pursue a traditional, static, legal, formalistic Islam, or to reclaim and refashion a more dynamic, cosmopolitan, universal, pluralistic worldview. He rejected the notion that Islam should form the basis for the nation state's political or legal system, which he characterizes as a Middle Eastern tradition, alien to Indonesia. Indonesian Muslims, he said, should apply a moderate, tolerant brand of Islam to their daily lives in a society where, quote, a Muslim and a non-Muslim are the same, close quote. A state in which religion and politics are separate. Reflecting the growing empowerment of the laity in Islam, which many ulama saw as a challenge to their authority, Wahid affirmed the right of all Muslims, both laity and religious scholars, to perpetual reinterpretation, ijtihad, of the Quran and the traditions of the Prophet, in light of, quote, ever-changing human situations. And my final example is Nukolis Majid, also from Indonesia. In contrast to many reformers, based on his personal experiences as an Islamic activist in Indonesia and an opponent of both Sukarno and the Suharto regimes, he was convinced of the futility of opposing the power of the state. Moreover, in the infighting and inability of Islamic political parties to work together, that led him to conclude that the mixing of state and religion was counterproductive. Therefore, he was a proponent of an Indonesian democracy. His well-known slogan said, "Islam yes, Islamic political parties no." Insisting that no Quranic basis exists for the creation of an Islamic state, Noor warned that modern constructions of an Islamic state reduced Islam too often to a profane ideology, easily manipulated by those who want to impose their own views in the name of religion. He equated it with the sin of polytheism, shirk, or idolatry. Thus, he also rejected modern Islamist contentions that imposing Sharia, that is, he rejected those modern Islamist contentions that wish to impose Sharia as the rule of law that is necessary to make Indonesian society more Islamic. Noor insisted instead that true spirituality and religiosity came from an inner transformation, individual and national. Rather than imposing Islamic law, what was needed was a spiritual and cultural path that fosters an ethics in society rather than an Islamic state. The primary means to this path, he insisted, education, to transform individuals and society, and dialogue and open exchange, to improve relations between Muslims and other religious communities, as well as between the Muslim world and the West. Having rejected the notion of an Islamic state, that is a formal Islamic state, he rooted his advocacy of democratization in his belief that democracy has Quranic precedence, the Quranic and traditional Islamic notions of deliberation and consultation, with a strong emphasis on shura. However, no single model of government exists or is required. Instead, different countries need to formulate models appropriate to their environment. Noor was influenced by his country's multi-religious and multicultural society. Religious pluralism and tolerance, he believed, are not simply a theological issue, but a mandate rooted in the Quranic passages 262 and 569 that teach that God will judge and reward all believers, including Jews, Christians, and Sabians, in the next life. Therefore, all religions are on a par with Islam, and God gives salvation to anyone regardless of his or her religion in his thinking. So too, since each religion is committed to ethical values, all religions, not just Islam, have a role to play in the implementation of religious values such as social justice and democratic governance in politics and society. A major challenge for all Muslim reformers is the importance of providing a continuity, proposed changes to long-held Islamic beliefs and traditions. Other faiths have also gone through and still struggle with a similar process as they deal with reforming established norms regarding marriage, divorce, stem cell research, and cloning. The legitimacy of Islamic reformist thought, its acceptance or rejection, hinges on its perceived Islamic character. Therefore, the how is as important as the what. The process of change, the methodology, is often as important as the actual reforms themselves. Not surprisingly, then, reformers often emphasize that they are not advocating anything radically new, that Islamic tradition has always recognized the need to reinterpret its sources in light of current cultural and social realities. And that is the end of my talk.
Thank you very much, Prof. John, for your very insightful thought. And I think I can briefly mention about keyword. That is the dialogue between Muslim and non-Muslim in this. Let's move on to our third presenter, Professor Dr. Haji Abdul Mohd is here. He is currently one of the leaders of Muhammadiyah. Muhammadiyah is the second largest Muslim religious organization in the world. Professor Dr. Abdul Mohd earned his master degree at Flinders University, South Australia, and also hold a doctorate from UIN Sharif Hidayatullah, Jakarta. Prof, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Zulkifli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, la hawla wa la quwata illa billah, amma ba'd. Wa qala Allahu ta'ala fil Qur'anil Karim, a'udhu billahi minasyaitonir rajim, likullin ja'alna minkum syir'atan wa minhaja, walau sya'allahu la ja'alakum ummatan wahidah, walakin liyabluwakum fima atakum fastabiqul khairat ilallahi marji'ukum jami'a fayunabbi'ukum bima kuntum fihi takhtalifun. Wa qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, khairul umuri awsatuha. Esteemed speakers, Professor Osman Bakar, my senior, and Professor Imtiyaz, and also Professor John Esposito, and distinguished participants. First of all, apologize for not using PowerPoint, since I have no power nor point. And Professor Zulkifli, I might not use time allocation for 20 minutes, because I understand that whether I use 15 or 20 minutes, I will receive the same ticket fee and also honor fee. Therefore, I'd better use less than 20 minutes. My presentation entitled Islamic Moderation and Inclusive Society. In line with movement and interaction between people from different backgrounds, the world today and in the future are likely to be more diverse and pluralistic. Interaction between people have resulted in civilizational convergence and inclusive society. Though there is phenomenon of multi-faith extremism in the form of racism, Islamophobia, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, and so forth. In Islamic perspective, diversity and plurality are the will or sunnah of Allah. Further, Islam mitigates and nurtures Muslims how to deal with diversity and plurality through moderation and rest in goodness, or fastabiqul khairat. Islam is justly balanced religion which teaches Muslims to be always being moderate in all aspects of life. Islam prohibits extremism and primordialism, whether it is cultural, religious, racial, or political. Islam prescribes how to maintain plurality and building inclusive society that is multi-religious, multicultural, and multiracial. Inclusive society is founded upon authentic tolerance, acceptance, mutual respect, and positive pluralism. In this context, inclusive society has a strong bond of humanity, solidarity, openness, and brotherhood for unity, prosperity, security, and peace. It is important to note that unity does not mean uniformity. Being moderate does not mean weak, ignorant, syncretic, or permissive. In this regard, I have an anecdote about moderate. He called himself as moderate Muslim politician. So he performed Friday prayer very regularly for his Muslim constituent, but he also drink alcohol for his constituent as well under the name of being moderate. So moderate meaning doing everything to make constituent always vote for him. The nature of inclusive society is embedded within Islamic teaching. For example, Islam recognizes existence of other religions, respect adherence of other religions, and of other religions without being syncretic or agnostic. Muslims are reminded to be committed with the teaching of Islam, as it is explained in Surah Al-Kafirun. Islam is not a racial religion. It is a religion for all mankind with different languages, races, tribes, and nations. The Quran explains that mankind is created from the same origin and parents. It means that humanity is one. Further, it could be understood from Al-Hujurat 13, that already explained by Professor Osman before, that people will live in plurality and diversity. Differences in races, tribe, and nation do not mean superiority one above another. Building an inclusive society is possible through implementation of moderate values of Wasatiyah Islam. Referring to Bakar message that was actually concluded in 2018, there are 7 values of Wasatiyah Islam. First is tawassut, to be justly balanced, to be in the middle and step on the straight path, which emphasize on middle pathism. The second is iqtidal, to behave appropriately, proportionate, and fair in taking responsibility. The third is tasamuh, to recognize and pay respect to diversity and differences in most aspects of life. The fourth is shura, to have consultation and settling problems through deliberation and thorough consideration to reach a consensus. The fifth is islah, to be involved in reformative and constructive effort for the common good. The sixth is qudwah, pioneering honorable initiative and taking lead for courageous prosperity. And the seventh is muwatanah, recognizing the nation state and respecting citizenship for every people from different nationalities. Such moderate and inclusive society could be built through inclusive education, wherein students have experience living and interact with others from different faith and cultural backgrounds, as well as teaching religion that allows students to develop critical thinking and active collaborative competencies. Inclusive society is also possible within inclusive neighborhood, fair and just political atmosphere at home country, and global world. Allow me in the end of my presentation to explain about the experience of Muhammadiyah, as Professor Yusuf mentioned, as the Muslim modern and moderate organization in Indonesia that was firstly established in 1912. Currently, Muhammadiyah has 5,346 primary and secondary education, with more than 1,055,000 students in our schools. Muhammadiyah now has 172 higher education institutions, including one in Malaysia, with more than 850,000 students in our universities. So that is actually very significant for election. So in Muhammadiyah education, religion education is taught according to the religion of the student, and also it is taught by teachers from the same religion, meaning that Christian student, Catholic student, Hindu student, Buddhist, and Confucius, those who are studying in Muhammadiyah, they receive religion education according to their religion, and it is taught by teachers from the same religions. This is what we call by positive pluralism. And I think in the context of Indonesia, I can say the principle of so-called Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, meaning unity in diversity. This is, I think, some of the example how we could maintain harmony and how we could sustain the prosperity of the country. This is the end of my very brief presentation, and I believe it is less than 15 minutes. Thank you. And allow me to close my presentation by Muhammadiyah Ikhtitam. Nasrum minallah wa fathun qarib wa bashiril mu'minin.
Amin.
And for other Islamic organizations, Nahdlatul Ulama, they have their own Ikhtitam. Wallahul muwafiq ila aqwamit thoriq. So this is indicate the diversity within Islamic organization we can note from the way they close their presentation. Again, I also close just like Professor Osman before. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wallahul musta'an. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Abdul Mohd. I try to be al-wasat as possible. So let's move to our last speaker, Professor Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf. Prof. Imtiyaz and Prof. Dato Osman Bakar graduate from the same university, Temple, student of Professor Dr. Ismail Al-Farouqi. So without further ado, please, Prof.
Yeah, I need the pointer. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Professor Dato Dr. Muhammad Taufik, Professor Zulkifl, Professor Dato Osman, Professor John Esposito, Professor Dr. Abdul Muti. I and Professor Osman Bakar and John Esposito share a common heritage of studying at Temple University with Professor Ismail Al-Farouqi, rahmatullah alayh. And I want to say a little bit more about myself. I am not what I look. I am from Tanzania. So when I say I'm from Tanzania, people tell me, why are you not black? I say, why should I be black? My family comes from India, migrated to Tanzania a long time ago. I'm a British citizen. I educated in India and the United States. I was teaching in Thailand for 30 years. I work on Islam and Buddhism. And I taught at ISTAC for 4 years with Professor Dato Osman. And now I'm in Vietnam and unemployed in a way. My topic today is praxis of Islamic moderation. I was thinking that we talk a lot about ummatan wasatan, but we don't talk about how to practice it, how to be shuhada bin nas. That is what is important. We stop only saying that ummatan wasatan. I say this because Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is we have to represent him in praxis. Otherwise, being ummatan wasatan and harping about ummatan wasatan, for me, in my view, does not fulfill the purpose of what Quran expects of us. I say this because Professor John very well knows, and maybe I was at Georgetown University one time, and we had a conversation, maybe he does not remember, and he says, whenever non-Muslims ask about to Muslims, what is Islam? Muslims say Islam is peace. And Islam is peace because of the Quran. Islam is non-violent because of the Quran. Islam is multicultural because of the Quran. But where is the practice? We don't have an answer for that. And Dr. Taufik, you are a medical doctor, you know what I mean. People want to see that practice. For me, just talking about ummatan wasatan, and there are hundreds of books on that, is, to use a very bad word, is useless. It does not make effect. Because I work on Islam and Buddhism. A question which my Buddhist monk student asked to me once, you know, Buddhism is a religion of non-violence. It emphasizes ahimsa. They asked me a question by looking at what is going on in the Muslim world. And they asked me, sir, what is the limit of violence in Islam? Oh my God. Do we have an answer to that question? What is the limit of violence? I said, I don't have an answer for you. Look on what is going on in Gaza. Look at what is going on in Sudan. Sudan since April 23. Gaza, October 23. Shahr Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, and people are being killed every day. So where is this example from the 57 Muslim countries, OIC, who cannot do nothing to stop? And you know, every time I put on the TV and I put it off. Because they say United Nations resolution, non-binding, but Netanyahu says, to hell with your non-binding resolutions. I don't care. This is the fact of life. This is the fact which is happening every day. So we have to answer this question. And also, International Court of Justice, judgment, he doesn't care. So where are the Muslims? I'm being very frank, because this is pain of our heart. I'm sure all of our heart here. I'm a very frank scholar, okay, so I speak direct. For me, Turkey is the most advanced defense country. It is a member of NATO. It has NATO standard defense system. It can do something. It cannot. Pakistani army is very, very advanced. Malaysia is not. It cannot do anything. So where is our example of being praxis of ummatan wasatan, and to show that Islam is a religion of ummatan wasatan? Sorry, I need to do this way. I'm not used to this. Okay, so I'll read this from here. Okay. Again, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala khataman nabiyyin wal mursaleen. Sorry. Technology is too much. It always fails. Okay. Okay. My presentation is in 4 parts. I'll try to be very brief. We are living in the age of great disruption and coming wave. And the future, so what is the future? Or we are already here. So what is the future for humanity? What is the meaning of ummatan wasatan in Malaysia when Madani? We are in the phase of Malaysia Madani. And what is the praxis of ummatan wasatan? And then I will conclude. Okay. So let me go to Francis Fukuyama. He's talking about great disruption. We are living in post-industrial age, information society, postmodernism, post-secularism. There's no need to talk about secularism anymore. We have already passed the phase. Kharuddin Junaid is smiling there over at me. We have to know we are in the age of post-secularism. Ecological destruction, pandemic, we just passed through it. Global warming, you know recently what happened in Makkah, in Mina. Post-human future and biotechnology. There is erosion of religious and cultural communities. There is decline of kinship. And we are living in the contest between market capitalism and communist state capitalism from Russia and China. And where are we as Ummatan Wasatan in this phase? And of course, the rise of religious fascism, which we see in India, what is happening. And we see also extremism, which is happening even also in the Muslim world. My God, okay. And we are, as I said, so we are living in a society of no limits. There's broken families, crime, nobody's loving your neighbor. Do not love thy neighbor. Professor Wilfred Cantwell Smith, famous professor of Islam, was once asked by someone, are you a Muslim? Are you a Christian? And he said, go ask my neighbor. But these days, you cannot even ask your neighbor because you don't know whether your neighbor is alive or dead. And it is the age of corruption and end of the West and the rise of the East. Rise of the East. Another scholar, he is an atheist by the name, Mustafa Sulaiman, is a British expert in artificial intelligence. And he says that we are living in the age of Homo Technologicus. A very interesting book. The title is there, The Coming Wave. And he addresses the implications of AI for humanity. It is a very dangerous tool which AI is happening. It can destroy us. It has benefits, but at the same time, we are going to destroy ourselves. In spite of the benefits, AI, artificial intelligence, is creating new forms of art and culture beyond our imagination. AI can create systems which we cannot control, but we can manipulate it. We are totally dependent on technology. We need to stand up because we are at a turning point with a choice between unparalleled possibility and future unimaginable peril. The fate of humanity hangs with what decision we are going to make and to the challenges which are arising largely because of technology. Like I'm depending on technology here right now. So this is the wave which is coming or which is already here. And we have to think in this paradigm. Where is and Wasatan? Just talking about Ummatan and Wasatan as a religious discourse is not enough. It has to become praxis. Okay. So to pursue AI and biotechnology also is having lots of risk and profound societal implications. It is a trap. I'm quoting him. He says, somehow we need to get the best out of technology, something essential to facing daunting global challenges. The current discourse around technology, ethics, safety is inadequate. Despite the many books and debates about technology, we do not hear about how to contain it, how to contain technology, because technology is controlling us. In our daily life, when I go to sleep, the last thing I see is my phone. The first thing I get up in the morning, I open is the phone. We forget the du'as which we have to read. This is the reality which we Muslims are doing it ourselves, unconsciously. So all this is the part of praxis of being ummatan wasatan. So the containment is the problem. We have to contain. We urgently need watertight answers of the coming wave and safeguards so that we can have democratic nation state which can be maintained. But right now, no one has such a plan. No one has such a plan. This is a future that none of us want. But he says, I fear it is increasingly going on and it is likely to happen. The benefits and perils of technology. I'm going to skip this slide. Okay. So the question before us as Muslims is, how are we going to envision, which is the topic of this symposium, next 100 years? It's a big challenge. How are we going to vision the future of Muslims in next 100 years? We are at present stage of history of at what future direction are we going to take to become the shuhada bin nas of ummatan wasatan? Please think about it very seriously. My answer is we need to move from talking to praxis, from theory and theology to practical application, from individualism to ummatism. We don't talk about ummah. The word ummah doesn't exist in our political language anymore. This is the truth. Professor Ismail al-Faruqi talked about ummatic, being ummatic, but we hardly talk about ummah. We either talk about Arab League or OIC or so many organizations which are around there and which have no interest of the ummah at all. I believe, and as a scholar, we have talked and written, blamed and criticized each other about what is Islamic moderation. What is Islamic moderation? We have to go beyond this discourse, beyond this debate. Next slide, please. So we have talked enough, and I say we lack praxis. I hold that talking of ethics also is not enough. We have to begin with giving, with a position that we all know the fundamental principles of Islam. I think it is everybody, excuse me, it should be taken. Everybody knows as a Muslim, every Muslim knows what is Fardu Ain. Every Muslim knows what it means to be a Muslim. We have to go beyond that debate. And we are only confusing, and we have to stop talking about debating about whose faith and whose iman is right or whose iman is wrong, because it only confuses the ummah and it results in religious factionalism. Next slide, please. So this ayat, everybody mentioned, Professor Dato Osman already mentioned that. I'm not going to mention it again. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلًا أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. This is a common verse which is recited again and again. Next slide, please. So, Muhammad Asad describes Ummatan Wasatan as the community of the middle way, a community which is justly balanced, and it is time that we call for moderation in every respect of life. The Quran exhorts the people not to place too great emphasis on the physical and the material aspects of life. And it views the desires and urges of humanity are God-willed, therefore legitimate. Next slide, please. So, Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim, the dynamic 10th Prime Minister of Malaysia, has developed the concept, the vision of Ummatan Wasat. He has only given vision of Ummatan Wasatan in Malaysia, Malaysia Madani, though as a world model of Ummatan Wasatan. Why do I say that? Everywhere, every country I go, Muslim country I go, they want to come to Malaysia. The whole Muslim world wants to come to Malaysia. I say, why? They say, because it is the most peaceful country. It is the most peaceful country. It's really, Malaysia is the most developed country in the Muslim world. I don't know if you Malaysians are aware of this or not. It is more developed than Turkey. It is more developed than any other country. So that's why people want to come. All the refugees want to come to Malaysia, but Malaysia is so small country of space, you cannot accommodate all of them. So the Madani model of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is based on the model of Medina, Misaq al-Medina, which was a multi-religious society, flourishing state, And there was an agreement between Muslims, Jews, and also the kuffar of Medina who did not oppose the Prophet and supported him, that he was the arbitrator. Next slide, please. So the policy of Malaysia Madani, as the Prime Minister has said, is talking about holistic approach to government, principles of sustainability, prosperity, innovation, respect, trust, care, and compassion. It aims to create harmonious and inclusive society. I'm very proud of my friend and professor of 40 years. He is the only one I know who talks about inclusive society in Malaysia. He takes this challenge, and I really appreciate and respect him for doing that. I don't hear other scholars talking about inclusive society, how to practice it, how to build it. He does it through dialogue with Confucianism, with Buddhism, with Hinduism, with every other religion in the society. Why? To build peace, stability, and progress. Next slide, please. So, what is the cultural dimension? Let's talk, as I said, from theology to praxis. It has to have a cultural dimension. Maintenance of careful balance of cultural ideas across diversity. Encouragement of intergenerational discourse to eradicate the culture of corruption. This is our problem, culture of corruption and other tendencies. So to develop intercultural dialogue based on for the pursuit of multicultural sources available in Malaysia. Next slide, please. So, religious diversity is not a problem for Muslims. We have no problem because Islam is the last religion, and since it is the last religion, we learn, we have the benefit of learning all the religions which came before us. And there's an ayat of the Quran in Surah 49, Surah Al-Hujurat, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us as different nations and tribes. For what purpose? For fastabiqul khairat, which Professor Mohd talked about it. So I'm going to close here. Please go to my conclusion. You can go to the next slide. Next slide. It's too long. Okay. Okay. Praxis. So we need socially engaged Islam, committed to changing of society, based on the values of Musawwa, Adal, Ihsan, Salam, Rahma, and Hikmah. So the goal of socially engaged Muslim, Ummatan Wasatan as socially engaged Muslims who strive to remove injustice, suffering, and zulm on earth. Next slide, please. The project of socially engaged Islam for Ummatan Wasatan can be successful by removing illiteracy and acquisition of knowledge to build a moderate society. But the greatest obstacle to Ummatan Wasatan model praxis is political rivalry, political conflict between different factions and groups in different countries, between nations, and as I said, the case of genocide in Gaza and the rise of religious fascism, culture of corruption, superpower rivalry, and internal conflicts. Next slide, please. So here is the Prime Minister. His book script is very, very important. I've read it many times. It contains the details of Ummatan Wasatan. Next slide. This is my last. This is my book. It is available free for download on the website of my university, of Dr. Jamal Al-Barzanji, as an example of a socially engaged global Muslim. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Imtiyaz. I need to check which organizer. Do you allow us for Q&A? 5 minutes. 5 minutes, is it okay? 5 to 10, okay? Okay, right. I think because Prof. John Esposito in Washington, right now is about 11 at night. So I allow for Q&A from the floor, please. If we can get 1 or 2 questions. If you have a question, yes, please. Use the microphone. Yes, yes. And mention your name and also affiliation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I'm Ahmad Arya Valiansa. I'm from Indonesia. I'm also a student at International Islamic University Malaysia, UIA. I'm very thankful to be here. I'm also, the question is maybe to all the speakers, keynote speakers, but here I'm strongly agree with the statement Professor Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf in briefly statement that we have to be more practice despite only knowing what is Islam and memorizing the whole things about Islam. We have to be more practice. But my question here is, are there other ways besides reading or memorizing books or debating or having a long discussion to take steps or concrete action to implement moderation in our life, especially for us or for me who's still pursuing our degree? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I have one more question, if you have? From ladies. Okay, last one.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Willy Ashadi. I am a lecturer at Universitas Islam Indonesia, Yogyakarta, and also I am a PhD student in political science. I want to address my question to Prof. Abdul Muti. As you mentioned before about the characteristic of Islamosatiya, there are characteristics of the Islamosatiya, if I'm not mistaken, 7. The first one is Tawasu, and then Iktidal, Tasamuh, Syurah, Islah, Qudwa, and the last one is Muwatanah. My question is, have Muslim majority countries implemented Wasatiyah, like Malaysia or Indonesia, or maybe in Pakistan and other countries? And the second one, for Muhammadiyah, what are the challenges, especially for Muhammadiyah as the largest organization in Indonesia, to realize Wasatiyah? That's my question. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam. Thank you for the question. So I pass first 2 minutes, and then after that, Professor Dr. Muti, and a conclusion from Dato Osman.
Thank you very much for your question. The answer is very, very simple. We as Muslims, and not only as Muslims, but as human beings, we are living in the environment of Sunnatullah and Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we follow these two sunnahs, you have the practice of ummatan wasatan implemented in your society, in your person, in your individuality, and in your society, and it will ripple around the world. And if you have the values which I mentioned of rahmah, ihsan, hikmah, if these are applied and practiced, and we are aware of the dangers of artificial intelligence, biotechnology, post-humanism, and all the dangers which are around us. I'm not saying that they are bad. I'm saying we have to face them as challenges. And that is the only way out, that we can practice and implement and become the example of Ummatan Wasatan. So Sunnatullah and Sunnatul Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam are the models for us to follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just want to respond in a very brief. First, of course, Muslim countries are still working how to practice and implement the teaching of Wasatiyah Islam in all aspects of our life. So we are in the process of becoming, not yet in the existence of being Wasatiyah. The second, I think, the challenge that we face in Muhammadiyah, I think I can summarize into three. The first, Professor Esposito mentioned about the robust democracy in Indonesia, but it's also become the challenge for us when our democracy becoming so, let's say, pragmatic, where the election as one of the process of democracy dominated by what we call as vote buying. A friend of mine who is actually a prominent religious leader who ran as a member of parliament, since he has not enough money, then he was not elected. And he said, Mukti ma fi fulus manfus. This is the problem that we face now. The political populism has become the challenge how we could develop a moderate and tolerant society, because this popular political tendency also actually also stimulated by the dynamic of local election in Indonesia, then in many different regions of Indonesia we face different. The second actually relate to what we call inequality. This is the challenge that we face, especially economic inequality. And if we see the serious problem that we face in Indonesia is this inequality, then it's become a very flammable issue that very frequently result in what I call is intolerance or other forms of religious violence. And finally, our very serious challenge is the quality of human resources. Professor Imtiyaz mentioned about the challenge of illiteracy. So how we can have better education to have literacy, and our serious problem in Indonesia now is not knowledge illiteracy, but our serious problem now is moral illiteracy. And this is why Muhammadiyah work very hard through our education and also our what we call amal usaha, in order that we could achieve our dream as Wasatiyah Muslim community. We believe that the challenge remains there, but we believe by working together, by having ta'awun, we can achieve our dream.
Well, just to add to what our two panelists, I think they have pointed out, especially Professor Imtiyaz pointed out the basic thing. I agree with him that how to establish moderation and the Wasatiyah order, first, of course, at the individual level. How to establish moderation in our individual human being as a Muslim, so that in terms of thought, in terms of beliefs, in terms of behavior, we follow the model of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, because it is clear from that verse on the Ummatan Wasatan that at the individual level, we are to be individuals, shuhada, witnesses over humankind. So we should ask ourselves, do I behave as a shahid, as a witness, as recommended by that verse? Well, how to do it? It's very clear that يكون رسول على شاهدا no this يكون الرسول شاهد I'm sorry as I mean we as the Prophet himself is the shahidan alaykum, yeah, shahida alaykum shahida, alaykum shahida. So it's that, in other words, how to play the role of an individual witness to moderation by just follow the Prophet how he played that role. Yeah? Our problem now is at the level of the ummah, at the ummatic level. Because we are divided. I think therefore unity is very important. How to bring about unity? But it's not necessarily political unity. Political unity is very difficult thing to achieve. But if you talk about spiritual unity, moral unity, in other words, at least we together, we are united in reacting against what is going on in the world. We shouldn't leave our fate, our future on one organization. I think that's wrong. You say that, oh, what is OIC doing? I'm sorry. We should, first of all, have that belief that we together, not necessarily the established organization set up by the government. No. Every one of us get together in the university, at USIM. We can help to contribute to that, in other words, through so many different ways. Yeah? And finally, at the level of civilization, at the Madani level. Since I'm talking about people in the university, unfortunately, when we deal with civilization, we forget our own civilization. We only look at the contemporary civilization. We look at the West as the superior civilization. I think it is time that, what's the purpose of having courses or complete course on Islamic civilization if we don't learn these essential messages of Islamic civilization? I think when I was at UBD in Brunei, I taught a course on Islamic civilization. But we don't teach about, pay too much attention on such and such a person, days, events, and so on. Instead, what do you emphasize? What are the essential lessons, the perennial lessons that we can learn from Islamic civilization? 14 centuries of civilization. What is the eternal message of that civilization for us today so that we can implement, we can relive that message? I think that is our challenge today. Yeah? The message of Islamic civilization for us in the 21st century, which is Islam as a moderate or wasatiyah civilization. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dato Osman Bakar. And if I may conclude briefly, so we are discussing on the shaping the moderate Muslim mind for the contemporary world. So let's move from the concept to this. So it's very important. And let's give appreciation to all of our presenters, including Prof. Esposito from Washington. So thank you very much, and I pass to the MC.
Okay. Please stay, Professor Dato and also the keynote speakers on the stage. So that brings our insightful keynote session to a close. And now, to demonstrate our sincere appreciation for our keynote speakers' valuable contributions, we have a special gifts presentation session coming up. Please welcome Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Muhammad Taufik Muhammad Noor to the stage to present the gifts.
بمولى
So, starting with our moderator, Professor Dato Dr. Zulkifli Abdul Ghani. Our first keynote speaker, Professor Emeritus Dato Dr. Osman Bakar, holder of Al-Ghazali Chair, ISTAC, UIAM, Malaysia. Our third speaker, Professor Dr. Abdul, Secretary General Muhammadiyah Indonesia. And finally, our fourth keynote speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Imtiyaz Yusuf, Non-Resident Research Fellow at CICW, Shenandoah University, USA. As for Professor John, we will be arranging to post your tokens of our appreciation to you, inshallah. Thank you. Thank you to all speakers, moderator, and yang berbahagia Dato'.